we're going to have a lot of recruits and a lot of things. I'm going to put something on the message board tomorrow morning about this, about some things that I've already heard, some things and some conversations that I've had about what's been going on in that building the last couple of weeks and where they're trying to get at before July. But Dakorien Moore, who is the number one receiver in the country, is back on campus. And the conversation that he had last night and the pursuit of what LSU is doing already again with him, I think speaks volumes. Number one, it speaks volumes in the sense of, listen, man, they still really want this kid to be here. I don't blame him. The kid is really stinking good. And they will continue on that path until they feel that there isn't a path of getting him back. Look, this has happened before where a kid is decommitted and then come back. Am I saying that he is? No. I still think that you got some things in some boxes that you need to recheck that you did to start off with. But this kid is very special. Wherever he goes, they're going to get a really good player. Look, Ohio State has gotten into the mix here. Texas has gotten into the mix. Oregon has gotten into the mix, and obviously his in-state home school as well in Texas has obviously been in the mix the entire time. But there is a full court press on the kid. And I think Cortez Hankton has shown not only getting a guy like Jamar Chase to talk to him, but having Malik Neighbors, who was going off at Giants camp today. Brian Thomas Jr. Oh, and by the way, having 4 receivers that he coached, recruited and developed in the top 60 picks, I think that that's a big deal. Justin Jefferson getting a $140 million contract doesn't hurt either. Because like I told you a couple of weeks ago, and like I told their camp and will continue to say, don't be short-sighted in the NIL space, because there has been receivers and will continue to be receivers that come here. The pedigree is here, man. Don't let the short-term money that, by the way, is not going to be astronomically different from any one school that you go to versus the long-term success that you would have at a school like that. There's not another quarterback that you would play with better than Bryce Underwood. Sorry, there won't be. So I look at a guy like Dakorien Moore. People had asked if that bridge had been burned. Clearly, it had not been. If it had been, LSU wouldn't have brought him back. Would they have? Now, even though it was reported by some that maybe that bridge had sailed and they don't really want to talk to LSU, well, clearly that changed very quickly. I know that one site that it was reported on, 2 weeks later, here he is. So I would just say Dakorien Moore is back. Let's continue to monitor. You're in a dogfight for him. You're going to be in a dogfight for the number one wide receiver. You always were going to be. But I would remind you, like, for example, when Ryan Williams, the 5-star wide receiver, decommitted from Alabama in this last cycle, then goes back. Now, I understand that was a coaching change, but don't act like it's never happened before. You're in a dogfight. And if you think or expect that you're not going to be in a dogfight for a kid like that, you're highly naive. You're in a dogfight every day for Bryce Underwood. Maybe not the way that you were before he committed, but you always will be. He's not the only one that was on campus today, as well as JaMychal Garrett, the linebacker from Gulf Shores, Alabama, who had perceived to be a Auburn lean. And by the way, a lot of people in Louisiana go to Gulf Shores on vacation. So it's always interesting to see a kid. But the last time a kid from Gulf Shores Foley that was a big-time recruit, big-named recruit, was a guy by the name of Julio Jones. I think he turned out to be okay. But JaMychal Garrett, the linebacker, is on campus. Here's what I would tell you, because we'll talk about this in just a minute too. There has been an intensity in reference to the defensive pickup in high school recruiting. I'm going to say this, and stay with me. From the front seven, for sure, and I know that you've gotten guys like Don McKinley, of course, but I will admit, I think that recruiting has been a little bit better in the front seven than maybe the first couple of years, at least the last 2 years for Brian Kelly. Now, again, You got Gabe Rutherford. You got Don McKinley. You got Xavier Atkins. You got Tyler Singleton. They had a really good haul in the last class. The problem is that your defense stunk, so we overlook that. But they are starting to pick it up. I look at a kid like Jonah Williams, the 5-star linebacker safety from Galveston, Texas, that will be here next week. Guys, I fully expect that will be a full court press as well, and that LSU will try to start making up some ground here with Blake Baker and company. I'm starting to feel, and I want to take a holistic approach about this instead of just looking at one individual guy. Now, I'm going to point out a guy like Dakorien Moore. I'm going to point out a guy like Jonah Williams. But I do feel that things, at least for me, I feel a little bit better than I'll just say it. I felt a little bit better now than I did this time last year. Even though because of the collapse of Texas A&M, you were able to reel back into big-time in-state recruits in McKinley and Williams. But God forbid what if there wouldn't have been a coaching change in College Station? How would that have affected things? Don't ever give up. Now, I will remind you of Gabe Rutherford as one of them. Guys, Gabe Rutherford all last season was at LSU more than he was at A&M. Go by the action of what they're doing. But I'm starting to feel a lot better about Bo Davis. I'm starting to feel a lot better about what Kevin Peoples is doing. I start feeling a lot better about, and not that I ever really did, but Blake Baker wasn't here long enough, right, to really get recruiting going. But I'm starting to feel a lot better there. Now, the question becomes, okay, for me, call me petty, call me whatever you want. I think you need to get a little bit better at the current moment at what you're doing on the back end. Now, you're going after a lot of really talented guys, and there's a very strong chance that, and especially that you, at least at minimum, that you're in the mix for some highly touted guys. Guys, that entire secondary needs to be overhauled. Can they do it? Can they do it? Do I think that the recruiting staff brought in a lot of really solid players in this last class? Yes. But things relatively, guys, over the last 90 days had been relatively quiet. There been some things here and there. But these next couple of weeks will be crucial. A guy like CJ Wiley will be on campus, for the wide receiver from Georgia. LeJesse Harold is another edge kid that will be on campus as well next week. So you're already starting to do some really good things at edge, and you're starting to do some really good things in the interior of the defensive line and high school recruiting at linebacker. You need to pick up some things at safety. Okay, safety is something that I think you need to pick up a little bit more on, and at corner. But I think that you will get there. All in all, I would say this. I think you're doing very well on the offensive side of the football. Clearly, you continue to recruit that room and those rooms very well. And I think last class, defensively, you did really well. Didn't do great at defensive tackle outside of one guy. But the reason that I feel better is this. I know that you got a really good edge last year in Gabe Rutherford. You got a really good defensive tackle and Don McKinley. But you need more. Right? Like, you need more of these kids to be able to bring in and develop. I know you got some linebackers. You did really good there in getting Debo Atkins, Tyler Singleton, etc. You need more in that front seven. Quite honestly, you need a little bit more talent at that corner position. And I think that you did that with getting guys like P.J. Woodland, and you did it at safety with getting a guy from Denham Springs and McBride. You need more. And I just wanted to say, as these next couple of weeks will go on, and things will start coming out about recruiting and recruiting updates and things like that. Me personally, even though last year went relatively good for you, guys, last year's class was nothing to sneeze about. It was still really good. The quality and the quantity that you are going after and potentially will land, I feel as if it's a lot better this time or right now than it was at any time last year. So we'll see. All right. Let's see here. Let's get to a couple of your comments. Anthony B. Saint says, in Corey Raymond and Blake Baker, we trust. Stephen Young says, I'm good with Woodward sacrificing men's basketball and investing those resources into football, baseball, and women's basketball, and even gym and softball. Well, you say that, Stephen, until the basketball team goes on a deep run and you invest into it. Dorian says they're looking at a 3-star, 6'2", 390-pound defensive tackle. That's a hog for the middle. 100%. And I think that's my point. You know, look, like the kid Jesse Harrell will be on campus. I'm still really high on Damian Shanklin from Indianapolis, Indiana. You're doing a lot better at that edge position. You're doing a lot better at the defensive line as a whole than you were at all last year. Now, is Gabe Rutherford and Don McKinley really good guys to go and get it? 1,000%. I'm not saying that it's not, because you need more than that. You need more than headliners of just two dudes. If you want to be up there with the Georgias, if you want to be up there with the Ohio States, the Michigans, the whoever it is, the Texases of the world, what are those schools? What are those schools doing? Are they getting a premier guy, I should say, at those position groups? Yes. You know what else they're doing? They're loading their class down with guys up front. Now, the offensive side of the ball, the offensive line, 1,000% you're doing it. The opposite side, you hadn't been. Now, you can say, well, Blake, you know, Jamar Cain leaving in spring last year was a big issue with Jimmy Lindsey. That's fair. That's fair. But you need more. You need more.